Maple Creek Elementary, 9:12 a.m. The sky above Maple Creek Elementary was as clear and blue as a polished marble, and the early sun warmed the freshly cut grass lining the school's playground. A soft breeze rustled the line of flags that marked the perimeter of the soccer field, each one fluttering under the weight of the day's theme, Safety Day. Police officers in clean navy uniforms stood by their vehicles, chatting with teachers and curious children. Bright posters hung on the school fence. Wear your helmet. Look both ways. Stranger danger. All accompanied by smiling cartoon figures giving thumbs up. But the real star of the morning was Germ Scherf, the Maple Creek K-9 Unit's golden-coated German Shepherd. He sat obediently beside Officer Maya Torres, tongue lolling happily as kids approached in wide-eyed wonder. His vest gleamed with the white K-9 patch, and his calm presence drew the kind of reverence reserved for superheroes and stuffed animals alike. Maya smiled as she watched him interact with the children. He had always been gentle, even in tense situations. At 3.5 years old, he was already one of the most trusted K-9s in the district, loyal, precise, and strangely intuitive. And today, he seemed perfectly at ease. Until he wasn't. The hallway was cool and quiet compared to the bustling courtyard. Most of the classrooms were still in session, their doors closed, the hum of children's voices muffled behind them. It was then, in that peaceful lull, that Maya heard the sharp tap of wheels echoing down the corridor. She turned, expecting another group of students arriving for the demonstration. Instead, it was just one, a girl in a wheelchair, being pushed gently by an older woman with a stiff gray bun and tight posture. The girl was small, maybe 7, with pale skin, messy auburn hair, and a book clutched tightly in her lap. Her gaze drifted lazily across the lockers, then settled on the floor. The woman, stern-faced, sharply dressed in dark tweed, guided her without a word. Maya gave a polite nod. And then Germ growled, low, deep, not a bark, a warning. Maya snapped her attention down to the leash. Germ, heel, she said instinctively, but the dog didn't budge. His muscles tensed, his ears pressed forward, his hackles raised slightly, just enough to be visible. His eyes locked, not on the girl, but on the woman behind her. Vivian Crowley stopped pushing the wheelchair. Her brow furrowed. Is there a problem, officer? Maya tightened her grip. Sorry, Mom. He's usually calm. Germ took a step forward, the leash pulling tight in Maya's hand. Then he barked. Loud, sharp. It echoed down the hallway like a firecracker. Germ, sit. The command only half registered with the dog. He stood rigid, barking again, now full-throated, agitated. Vivian's expression flattened. Control your animal, please. I am, Maya said, but even she heard the uncertainty in her voice. Her partner had never reacted this way. Not unless he sensed fear. Or worse, threat. She knelt beside him, placing a hand gently on his flank. It's okay, she whispered. What is it? Germ didn't look at her. His eyes stayed locked on Vivian. Emily still hadn't spoken. She sat motionless in her chair. clutching her book tighter now. But her expression hadn't changed. Not scared, not surprised, just quiet and sad. She turned her head slightly and looked at Germ with a soft, resigned gaze, as if she'd been waiting for this. Maya stood again. "I apologize," she said carefully. "He's never behaved this way. He might have picked up something unfamiliar." Vivian Crowley narrowed her eyes. "Your dog is clearly untrained. Come along, Emily." She turned the wheelchair sharply and began pushing the girl down the hall. Germ barked again and tried to lunge. Maya barely held him back. The hallway was now filled with his growls, clawed paws scratching slightly on the polished tile. As they disappeared around the corner, Germ slowly quieted, but he kept staring, even after they were gone. Maya didn't move for a long moment. Then she crouched again beside him. "What was that?" she murmured. He whined softly, eyes still on the hallway. She looked toward the corner. The echoes of the wheelchair wheels had faded. But something lingered. And it wasn't just the bark. That night, Maya sat on the edge of her bed, scrolling through her incident log. The soft whir of a box fan the only sound in her small apartment. She had written the report as casually as she could. Unusual behavior in K9 during school event. No contact made. Possible environmental trigger. It was sanitized. Safe. But her gut said otherwise. Germ hadn't barked at a smell. He hadn't barked at the child. He had barked at Vivian Crowley, and not like a dog barking at a stranger. Like a partner issuing a warning. She glanced over at him. He was lying on the carpet, head on his paws, watching her, still alert, still waiting. She opened her laptop and typed into the search bar, "Vivian Crowley, Maple Creek." Nothing unusual came up at first. Mentions of her as a guardian. A registered emergency contact for Emily Rose, who had enrolled in the school less than 6 months ago. No police records. No reports. But something felt wrong. Not because of what she found, but because of what she didn't. Emily had no parent listed. No medical provider. No siblings. No other family. Just Vivian. Maya leaned back in her chair and whispered to herself, "What do you know that I don't?" "Germ." The dog lifted his head. And for just a moment, it felt like an answer was close. Maple Creek Elementary. The next morning, Maya Torres parked 2 blocks from the school, leaving the cruiser behind. She didn't want questions. She wasn't here officially, just a forgotten piece of gear. That was the excuse. Germ walked beside her, calm but alert, ears twitching as they neared the brick facade of Maple Creek Elementary. The courtyard was quieter than yesterday. No banners, no kids shouting, just the routine hum of a regular day. But Maya's gut wasn't settled. Something about yesterday's encounter had lodged itself deep in her bones. Germ hadn't just barked, he had warned her, and now she needed to listen. Inside the building, Maya offered a practiced smile to the receptionist. "Morning. I realized I left a portable scanner during yesterday's K9 demo. Just wanted to swing by and check the hallway." "Oh, of course, Officer Torres. You're welcome to look. That was such a hit with the kids." Maya nodded, kept moving. She returned to the exact hallway, neutral beige. Lockers clean. A row of cheerful art pinned above the baseboards. She paused. Germ. She whispered. Search. The shepherd lowered his head instantly, sweeping his nose along the tiles. Slow and focused. 10 feet in, then 20. Then, he stopped, sat down, and whimpered. Soft, low. Maya crouched. It was the same spot Emily had passed in her wheelchair yesterday. The air smelled faintly of floor polish, disinfectant, and something else. Something chemical, too faint to label. Germ whined again, tail flat, posture alert but still. Maya's stomach tightened. Something had been here. Someone. Back at the precinct that afternoon. Maya sat at her desk with a frown etched deep into her brow. Her fingers moved across the keyboard, searching public records, medical files, and school district archives. Emily Rose, age 7, guardian, Vivian Crowley. No record of her attending any previous school before transferring to Maple Creek 4 months ago. No pediatrician listed. No vaccination record on file. A medical exemption form filed under chronic condition. But the box for diagnosis was blank. That wasn't normal. Digging further, she pulled Vivian's background. The name didn't appear in any police report. But not because there were no red flags. Because Vivian Crowley wasn't her first name. Birth name, Maureen Langley. Occupation, licensed practical nurse, revoked. Employment history, Ridgeway Assisted Living Center, dismissed. Reason for termination, excessive use of sedatives. Unauthorized dosage administration. Internal incident. No charges filed. Maya leaned back, a chill threading down her spine. A woman with a revoked medical license. A new identity. And a child whose medical record was almost entirely fabricated. She glanced at Germ, curled at her feet. His ears perked. I think we're on to something, she muttered. At 3:15 p.m. Maya returned to Maple Creek under a different pretense, following up on student feedback after the safety demonstration. Ms. Halpern, a third-grade teacher, greeted her at the classroom door with a warm smile. The kids loved it, especially the dog. Any chance I could see what they drew after the event? Oh, sure. We actually asked him to do a quick sketch of what they remembered most. Some drew the squad car. Others drew Officer Torres. She chuckled. A few drew Germ with a badge and cape. The drawings were colorful, messy, and sweet, until Maya reached one clipped to the bottom row. Crayon on white paper. Signature in careful block letters. Emily R. The drawing showed a little girl with bright orange hair, standing. Not sitting. Behind her was a tall figure. All in black, holding a rope or leash. Attached to the end of that leash was a small, slumped shape with 4 legs. Something dog-like, but it was drawn in gray. And its eyes were X's. Maya stared at it. What did she say about this one? She asked softly. Ms. Halpern frowned. Nothing, actually. Emily's very quiet, barely speaks in class. Just handed it in and wheeled away. Has she ever said anything about her home life? No. The guardian, Vivian, keeps to herself. Very proper. A little intense. Honestly. Maya nodded, heart heavy. This wasn't just a drawing. It was a message. A silent confession. That evening, Maya sat on her floor at home. Files spread around her like puzzle pieces. Germ lay beside her, watching every move. She stared again at Emily's drawing. The girl standing, the dead-eyed animal, the woman in black, and the leash. Maya's throat tightened. What if Emily hadn't always been in a wheelchair? What if the wheelchair wasn't because she couldn't walk, but because she wasn't allowed to? She picked up her phone and dialed a number from memory. "Detective LaRue," came the voice on the other end. "Detective. It's Torres. I need help with a welfare check." Quietly. No squad cars. No noise. Just eyes on a child. "Talk to me. It's not official yet, but something's wrong. A girl named Emily Rose. Her guardian's hiding things. Falsified records. A revoked medical license under another name. And there may be sedatives involved." She paused. She's not talking, but the dog is. Outside, the streetlights flicked on, and somewhere across town, a little girl sat in a quiet house. A book in her lap. A leash-shaped silence in her world. Waiting. Maple Creek Elementary. 1 week later. The second K-9 event at Maple Creek was a smaller affair. Tucked into the school library with only a single class and no press. Maya had requested it herself. Casually, by popular demand. She'd told the principal. But it wasn't for the students. It was for one student. Maya stood near the shelves. Badge clipped low, voice steady as she answered questions about police dogs, training, and how K-9 units work in real emergencies. Her tone was bright, but inside, she was wound tight. Her eyes flicked often to the far side of the room, where Emily Rose sat quietly in her wheelchair. Today, she wasn't being pushed by Vivian. A teaching assistant had wheeled her in, apparently due to schedule conflict that kept the guardian away. Emily hadn't spoken, hadn't smiled, but she hadn't looked away from Germ either. After the short demonstration, the kids were allowed to sit in a semicircle around the dog. Some reached out gently, others asked for paw shakes. Germ, ever patient, played along. When Emily was wheeled forward, Maya knelt and placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Hey, Emily," she said softly, "he remembers you." Emily didn't speak. She just looked at Germ, then slowly extended her hand. The shepherd pressed his nose into her palm. Eyes calm, tail still. And then, it happened. As Maya adjusted Germ's collar, she noticed a faint movement. Emily's fingers slipped a folded scrap of paper beneath the strap of Germ's vest, tucking it carefully against the edge of the fabric, so smooth and quick it could have been missed entirely. But Maya saw it. She didn't react, didn't draw attention, just locked eyes with Emily for the briefest second. The girl blinked once, and looked away, back at her vehicle. Maya reached under Germ's vest and pulled out the note. It was small, torn from a workbook. In shaky, uneven pencil were just 4 words. "Help me. She hurts me." Maya stared at it, frozen. Then she took out her phone and hit send. Subject: Emergency report. 2 CPS Field Unit, urgent review. Probable abuse of minor Emily Rose. Age 7. Evidence received directly from child. Guardian Vivian Crowley, alias Maureen Langley. Victim may be sedated or otherwise medically restrained. Immediate welfare check required. Officer Maya Torres attached. She included the drawing, the medical records, the background on the name change, and the photo of the note. The CPS agents arrived just after dusk. Maya insisted on being part of the team, not officially, but as a familiar face. She rode in a separate vehicle, heart pounding as the house came into view. A small, well-kept bungalow on a quiet suburban street. The porch light was on. The blinds were drawn. Everything looked normal, but Maya had learned long ago that evil doesn't wear signs. Sometimes it wears a cardigan and says please and thank you. Vivian Crowley answered the door with a pleasant, practiced smile. "Can I help you?" she asked sweetly, smoothing the front of her blouse. The lead agent flashed her badge. "We're conducting a wellness check on Emily Rose. We've received a report requiring immediate review." Vivian's smile didn't falter. "Well, that's unnecessary. Emily's asleep now. She's very fragile. You see, it would upset her. We'll need to see her," Maya said, stepping forward. Vivian's eyes flicked to her. Her smile thinned. "And you are?" "Officer Maya Torres, K9 Unit. Emily gave me something today. Something that makes this no longer optional." That was the end of the niceties. Inside, the house was clean. Too clean. The kind of sterile calm that doesn't feel lived in. They moved through the hall. Vivian hovering behind them like a shadow. Voice rising slightly. "She's in her room, but you must understand, she has a condition. It's very delicate. She can't." They opened the door, and Maya's breath caught. Emily lay in bed, flat and still. Her arms rested across her lap. Her eyes were open but glazed. Her lips moved faintly, but no sound came out. She wasn't sleeping. She was sedated. Heavy doses. Too heavy for a child. Germ growled. Low. Protective. Maya stepped forward, kneeling beside the bed. "Emily, can you hear me?" The girl's eyes shifted slightly. Slow. Heavy. Then her hand twitched. Maya gently took it. "You're safe now." Behind them, Vivian's voice turned brittle. "I don't know what she told you. But this is medical. This is necessary. She's unstable. She's dangerous. She screams in her sleep. She's a child." Maya snapped. "And you've been drugging her into silence." Germ moved between them in an instant. Growling again, louder now. Vivian instinctively stepped back as the shepherd stood rigid, his body blocking her path to the bed. His eyes locked on her like before. Like always. Like a dog who finally understood the full truth of what he'd sensed. She opened her mouth, but didn't step forward. She knew. She was done. Later, the paramedics would confirm it. High-dose sedatives in Emily's system. No signs of paralysis. No muscular damage. No genetic disorder. Just long-term suppression. Vivian was taken into custody that night. The charges would follow. Medical fraud. Unlawful restraint. Child endangerment. But Maya wasn't thinking about that anymore. She was sitting beside Emily as the medication slowly wore off, her fingers gently tracing circles across the girl's small palm. "I got your message," she whispered. "You were brave. So brave." Emily blinked. And then, for the first time in days, she nodded. Outside, Germ stood watch at the door. The hallway was dark, the air was still, but his ears stayed forward. And this time, his growl had faded into nothing. Because now, he knew she was safe. The hospital lights buzzed softly, sterile and unchanging, as medical tests lined up like pieces of a puzzle finally falling into place. Maya sat just outside the observation room, watching Amara, still officially known as Emily Rose in the system, rest quietly in the hospital bed. A thin line ran from her arm to a saline drip. Her legs, once thought to be permanently paralyzed, were now free of braces and restraints. Her first real nap in years was dreamless, undisturbed. The toxicology report had been conclusive. The substances in her bloodstream were a blend of long-term sedatives and neuroblockers, carefully administered in just enough dosage to keep her conscious, but compliant. Drugs that, if given over time, could simulate paralysis, not damage the nerves, but suppress their signal. Artificial silence. Vivian had dosed her so thoroughly, so routinely, that even medical professionals had believed the illusion. Until Maya read between the lines. Until Amara found the strength to slip that note into a dog's vest. Vivian Crowley, real name, Maureen Langley, broke on the third day of questioning. Not under pressure, not from strategy, but from a single photo Maya placed on the table. A picture taken just weeks before the fire at the refugee housing site, 3 years ago. It showed a woman with curly hair, holding a child with vibrant auburn curls and soft brown eyes. Both were smiling. "Do you know who this is?" Maya asked quietly. Vivian stared at the image. Her mouth quivered. "I saved her," she whispered. "The fire. I found her crying. No one else came. I thought she needed someone. You pretended to be her relative. Claimed custody. Claimed trauma. You changed your name. Applied for grants, donations, monthly assistance. All under false pretenses." Vivian's eyes went flat. "She was mine. After that, the world gave up on her." "No, you made the world forget her." A DNA test confirmed what the fire records had hinted. Emily Rose was actually Amara Lane, daughter of Sarah Lane, a humanitarian worker who had died in the blaze trying to save others. Her body had only recently been identified through dental records sent in by a sister in Oregon. The family hadn't known what had happened to Amara. She was presumed lost, or worse, until now. Maya stood beside the Lane family, Amara's uncle, aunt, and cousins, when they first saw her. The moment was quiet. No dramatic tears, just open arms and a softness that Amara had never seen in Vivian's face. A place to land, a real one. The recovery was slow, but hopeful. Maya visited her every few days. Sometimes with Germ, who had become something of a legend around the hospital staff. The dog's presence had the same effect it always did, calming. Grounding. The first time Amara really stood, it was Germ she looked at first. Then Maya. Then her own feet. She didn't say anything. She didn't need to. The tears said enough. Physical therapy followed. Speech therapy. Trauma counseling. Medical detox. The moment she was able to stand for 5 full seconds without aid. Maya clapped so hard it startled 2 nurses. Amara just smiled. It was the first time Maya had ever seen it. Not the shy, wary smile she'd worn as Emily, but the real one. Bright, slightly crooked, full of life. Maya sat with her one day in the therapy room, watching her navigate a balance board. The little girl didn't speak much still, but she was learning. "You know," Maya said gently, "your name? It's beautiful." Amara glanced up. "I didn't remember it at first," she said, voice quiet. "But now, it sounds right again." There was a long pause. Then Amara added, "Vivian said my legs didn't work." I believed her. Maya nodded. "Sometimes, when people hurt us for a long time, they teach us to stop trusting what we feel." She leaned closer. "But now you know better. You're stronger than the lie." Amara looked down at her feet. Then took a step forward. 2 weeks later, the adoption was finalized. The Lane family, her real family, had prepared a bedroom filled with soft blue walls and hand-picked furniture. There was a shelf full of books. A window that opened to real sunlight. A photo of her mother placed gently on the dresser. Amara stood at the doorway and whispered, "It smells like flowers." Her aunt hugged her from behind. "We planted marigolds yesterday. They were your mom's favorite." Amara pressed her face into her aunt's shoulder. And cried. Not out of fear, but out of recognition. Maya didn't stay long at the housewarming. She stood with Germ in the yard, watching Amara chase bubbles with her cousins across the grass. Her wheelchair tucked quietly behind a bench. Unused, unmissed. Germ gave a small bark as one of the bubbles landed on his nose. Maya smiled. She saved herself. "You know," she said to the dog. "We just showed up in time to catch her doing it." As they drove home, Maya reached into her vest and pulled out the old note. The one Amara had written. "Help me. She hurts me." Maya folded it carefully, then tucked it inside her notebook. Not as evidence anymore, but as a reminder. Sometimes, the loudest cries for help come in silence. And sometimes, a dog with a good nose and a better heart can hear them when no one else can. Maple Creek Town Hall, 1 month later. The late afternoon sun spilled golden light across the town square as folding chairs filled the grass and families gathered around the temporary stage set up in front of Maple Creek's municipal building. It wasn't a grand event. No news vans. No camera crews. No flashing lights. But the crowd was larger than expected. Teachers, firefighters, paramedics, students, neighbors. They were here not just for an award. They were here for a moment. And for a dog who had changed everything. At center stage stood Officer Maya Torres in full uniform. Her hand resting gently on the leash of Germ Scherf, who sat at attention, calm as ever. His vest had been cleaned and polished. His badge glinting in the sunlight. Next to them, A small podium stood ready with a velvet box containing a hand-engraved medal. K9 of Trust, in recognition of exceptional service beyond the call of duty. The mayor stepped forward and spoke briefly, words of honor, gratitude, and pride for the local K9 unit. But it wasn't until Maya stepped aside and gestured to the side of the stage that the audience truly leaned forward. Because emerging from behind the curtain came Amara Lane. Walking, without help, without a wheelchair, without fear. Her steps were steady, if still a little slow. But her head was high, her eyes bright, and her hand held a velvet ribbon with the medal at the end. She crossed the platform in silence. The crowd was hushed. Then she stopped in front of Germ. Knelt, and with careful hands, she placed the medal around his neck. The applause erupted instantly, cheers, whistles, tears. A few people stood. Others clapped so hard their palms stung. But Amara didn't flinch. She just smiled. Germ gave one soft bark and licked her cheek. When things quieted, Maya stepped to the mic and spoke. Today, we honor an officer who followed no rulebook, only instinct. Who protected someone who couldn't speak for herself. Who trusted his gut, and helped uncover the truth. She looked down at her partner. Germ Scherf didn't save a life the way you might see in the movies. He didn't tackle a suspect or sniff out explosives. He did something harder. She turned to the audience. He listened, and because he did, a young girl is free. And the silence that once hid her story is gone. More applause. A few people wiped their eyes. Then Maya stepped back. And Amara stepped forward. She looked so small behind the podium, but no one missed a word. The mic was lowered to her height. Her voice was soft, steady. I didn't talk for a long time, she said, not because I didn't want to, but because I thought no one would believe me. She paused, hands folded. But one day, a dog barked. A faint laugh ran through the audience. And that bark meant something. It told someone to look closer. It told me I wasn't alone. She looked down at Germ. He heard what I couldn't say. And that changed everything. Silence followed her words. Not awkward, but full, moved. Then came another burst of clapping, this one heavier. More emotional, because everyone understood the weight behind those words. The story of Germ and Amara spread far beyond Maple Creek in the weeks that followed. A teacher's video clip of her speech went viral. News stations picked it up. Child's silent cry saved by police dog. K9's bark uncovers hidden abuse. Articles circulated about Vivian Crowley's conviction. But even more focused on the miracle of Amara Lane, a girl found, rescued, and restored, not through dramatic heroism, but through empathy. The photo of Germ wearing his medal became a symbol for child protection programs nationwide. And Maya received dozens of emails from parents, teachers, and social workers thanking her for listening, for believing, for not dismissing a bark. In private, Maya received a note from Amara, written in careful, neat handwriting. Dear Officer Maya, I still have dreams sometimes. But they're different now. In them, I'm not stuck, I'm standing. And Germ is always there. Thank you for helping him hear me. Thank you for letting him speak when I couldn't. Love. Amara. Maya kept it in her locker, folded into her badge wallet, right beside the original note. Help me. She hurts me. 2 pieces of paper. One desperate. One healing. Both unforgettable. Germ retired officially 6 months later. Not because he was too old, but because he had earned it. He still visited the precinct, rode with Maya on weekends, and sometimes stopped by Maple Creek Elementary for classroom visits, where the students now called him Detective Bark. But mostly, he spent his days running through wide fields and napping in warm sun. His medal still hung from his collar. It wasn't heavy, it was just right. And Amara, she never went back to being Emily. She stayed Amara, full of new beginnings. She returned to school in the fall, not in a wheelchair, but on her own 2 feet. Sometimes she spoke little, other times, she raised her hand with a fire that made her teachers grin. But always, always, she remembered that day on the stage. And what it meant. Because for her, justice hadn't arrived in a courtroom or a jail cell. It came in the form of a dog who barked at the exact right time. And that bark was the first sound of her freedom.
Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, please comment 1. And if you didn't, just hit like. See you in the next videos.